Hello FPL managers and welcome to Fantasy Football Hub's Game Week 11 review with me, James. As always, I'm joined by the one, the only, big man Bakar. Bakar, how you doing, mate? How was your Game Week 10?
Thanks for having me, James. I had a fairly mediocre week. I got 43 points. Um, the way I look at it this week, it was basically, Reece James was the make or break for most FPL managers. If you had him, you must have been laughing, and if you didn't, then I mean it was a fairly average week for you. But I can see you're very happy again, and the fact that you've been blushing all this while we've been off air just tells me that you've had a very successful week yet again.
Yeah, I know. I don't know what's going on, Bakar, but another good one for me. I've had my two best game weeks in the last two game weeks, so just hitting a strange purple patch. No Reece James, but 68 points for me in game week 10. It's just all of those little differential fringe players, the Smith Rowes of the world, the Jimenezes of the world, all came in for me. So
Even
uh,
Ronaldo
even Ronaldo, who unbelievably is a
is
differential.
is exactly.
So yeah, no, I mean, incredibly lucky. We'll see. Like I was saying to you off air, I don't think it's going to last. But Abdul yesterday was telling me to think positive. So
Yeah.
maybe I can win the thing. Who knows? Right.
Fingers
Anyway,
crossed for you.
thank you. Thank you very much. Right, Bakar, we have a lot to get through ahead of game week 11, the last game week before the third international break of the season. And it is, ladies and gentlemen, a Friday night deadline. And I always stress this because it can sneak up on you, these deadlines. It will probably be, it's an 8 o'clock kickoff, so I imagine it will be a 6:30 GMT deadline. Make sure your teams are locked in before then. And we start with Southampton versus Aston Villa. Intriguing one from an FPL perspective, and mostly because of this man, Livramento. Bakar, talk to me about him.
I was lucky enough to get him on from my bench this week, James, but unfortunately, looks like he'll be on my bench yet again. Um, and I don't really think it's a sound decision, to keep benching him week in week out, because Southampton, off late, ever since their favorable fixture swing 3 weeks ago, they're actually ranked as the best team for XG conceded. While Villa this season have been struggling, they're 18th for XG and 19th for big chances, which just tells you where they're at the moment, and they're struggling to create chances. I think this could be yet another week where we see Livramento getting a clean sheet, and FPL managers, raging on social media that they've not had him in their first 11. But I mean, this is it. I mean, most of the squads are at the moment are so stacked that there's no place for Livramento, which is highly unfortunate. But he's a perfectly playable option.
Yeah, I mean, we saw when West Ham played Aston Villa in game week 10 that actually the right back in that game, Johnson, did score from the kind of position that Livramento likes to get himself in. Do you feel like, from an attacking perspective, Livramento has still got plenty to offer, particularly against the likes of Aston Villa?
That could be the case. I mean, he's been reasonably attacking this season. He's the kind of player who I won't be surprised to see him register attacking returns. Even in the past game week against Burnley in game week 9, if I'm not mistaken, he was top for chances created and shots in the box in the match. He's the kind of player I would not expect attacking returns from on a consistent basis, but I won't be surprised to see him, get the odd goal or the odd assist.
A challenging predicament for FPL managers there. You're saying, Bakar, that you are going to bench Livramento.
Yes.
Okay.
I'll have him on my bench.
There we go. You've heard it here first, folks. Let's move on to Saturday's fixtures now. In the early kickoff, well, it is a thrilling one. Manchester derby, Manchester United at home against Man City. Bakar, you here have highlighted United's 3-5-2 lineup, which they rolled out against Spurs in game week 10. I couldn't really think of a picture to go with this, so I've just got Ronaldo's stats on screen for the meantime. He is the player I still think most owned, maybe with the exception of Shaw, in that Man United team. How do you feel that Solskjaer's tweaking to his formation has changed Man United?
It's made them more defensively solid. That's basically been the main idea behind it, to give them more, to leave them less exposed to the back. And up front, we see that Ronaldo's been doing the business. Yet again last night versus Atlanta, he was the man to deliver yet again. And I think United will be worth considering in a few weeks' time going forward. Maybe even from next week. You look at their fixtures: Watford, Arsenal, Crystal Palace, Norwich. With the exception of the Chelsea game after this week, they have reasonably good fixtures. So Ronaldo could come back into the reckoning. And in my opinion, like yourself, I mean, if you own him, then he's worth keeping. I don't think he's worth selling at this point in time, because if anything, FA managers should be looking to buying him rather than sell.
Yeah, it does feel counterintuitive to sell him after a 12-point haul in game week 10 and then a brace in the Champions League. The only thing that's on my mind is that we now have Kane, who's potentially back in the mould, and I don't own any Brentford players, and I would really like Ivan Toney against Norwich. We're going to get onto Conte's impact and, well, in fact, we're going to move on to Mbeumo and Toney next. Very quickly, though, before we finish on Man United, let's talk about their defenders for a second. Lots of people put their faith in Luke Shaw at the start of the season. I think he was the most owned defender, in fact. Most of those managers have since gotten off him. He's been incredibly disappointing. Is there an argument to be made that under this new system, Shaw could be worth considering again?
He could be, given the advanced positions he's taking up. But I mean, for that, United need to show defensive solidity. I mean, I'm not even sure whether this system that United are playing will remain in some of the easier games, because I think this system is designed by Ole to play in the tougher games. So when you look at their easier fixture run from game week 16 onwards, they might revert to a 4-2-3-1. If they show signs of solidity, then sure. But for now, I don't think they are reasonably defensively good enough to warrant investment in defense.
And again, just very quickly, we should acknowledge their opponents, Man City, still very, very popular amongst the FPL population. Is this a classic case, Bakar, of if you don't have them, don't buy them. If you've got them, keep them in game week 11? Or do you think you'd be looking to shift on, particularly City defenders, if you, for example, one of those that went for the double up?
Now, this is a very tough question to answer, because with Chilwell and James smashing it, it's obviously very tempting to, switch some of them. I think Cancelo is still personally worth keeping, because at the end of the day, I mean, City have kept 6 clean sheets this season. Just because they've kept just the one in the past 4 games doesn't automatically make them a poor defense. When you look at their underlying numbers, they're still best for XG conceded, shots conceded, big chances conceded, whatnot. So I still think holding at least one of them is sensible. Cancelo, I still think is a hold. I can see arguments to sell Diaz, but I'm not totally averse to holding him either, considering that we're entering the most busy stage of the season, and he's likely going to be the most nailed City defender in terms of security of starts.
Okay, thank you very much. 3 o'clock, Brentford versus Norwich. This is what many consider to be a banker if you own these 2 Brentford assets. Ivan Toney and Bryan Mbeumo, both of whom, well, Mbeumo didn't play in game week 10, much to the disappointment of his owners. Toney disappointed once again against Burnley. Bakar, is this the final straw for these 2?
I've been a very strong advocate of the double up, the Brentford double up, and I think this is the acid test. This is the fixture where I expect them to go big. In isolation, both of them are fantastic options. Mbeumo, when it comes to budget midfielders, is top for big chances. Even among the Brentford players, he's top for XG. When you look at Toney, he's second only to Antonio when it comes to XGI for forwards this season. So their numbers are very, very good. And the way I expect this week to go, I think Brentford will score quite a few goals. Despite some of their tougher fixtures, they are ranked 6th for XG over the past 6 fixtures. So that tells me that the points should come, and it's worth sticking with the double up if you own them. And even this week against Burnley, I mean, Toney had a very good chance to score. He had an XG of over 0.5. So I think he's been a bit unlucky in recent weeks, and it's worth keeping him.
Yeah, free XG for Toney and nearly free XA as well, and he's only got 2 of each of those, so he is underperforming. Brian and Mbeumo as well, 2.49 XG and a 0.76 XA. He has 2 goals and 0 assists to his name, so both of these players actually doing better statistically than they are realistically. We kind of like those players as FPL managers, don't we, Bakar? Because those are the ones that you hope are going to start to return to the mean, so to speak.
Exactly, because their ownership isn't massive, and a lot of the casual players are unlikely to have them because they haven't done well in terms of FPL points so far. So this is the opportunity to take advantage of ahead of their fixture swing.
Okay, so far I'm Ronaldo out, Toney in. Let's continue. Let's see where I end up by the end of this. By the end of this video, Chelsea versus Burnley, another 3:00 fixture, and all of the talk is about their fullbacks. Tuchel actually joked that he ought to start playing Lukaku and Werner in the fullback position. Such is their goal-scoring output this season: 3 goals for Chilwell, 4 goals for James. I mentioned a double up early, Bakar. Are you an advocate of the Chelsea fullback double up as well as the Brentford double up?
I think there's a very, very strong case to be made now. I mean, they've accumulated almost 80 points together in the past 4 weeks, and owning them has been absolutely massive for whoever's owned them. But even when you look at the underlying statistics, I mean, in terms of penalty area touches per start, Chilwell and James are ranked second and third respectively, which just tells me that they're getting in the penalty area touch. They're getting a lot of penalty area touches. They've been instructed by Tuchel. In fact, this quote from Chilwell in his recent interview, he said that Tuchel wants defenders to score goals and attackers to do the defensive side. It's quite funny because after the game against Newcastle, we won 3-0, but there's part of me disappointed because I didn't get a goal and Reece on the other side got 2. That this just tells you that the kind of culture they have, they're sort of very competitive and both of them want to score as many goals as possible. And even last night, James, I was watching their game against Malmo. Alonso and Aspi, who were the wing backs, they had several opportunities to score. The only thing which will sort of put me off from the double up is the likely rotation which might come into play, because after this game week 12, after game week 12 they have after game week 10 they have after game week 11 they have 13 games in 42 days, which is a lot of games, and that could lead to fixture congestion, and that's not something I'd want. But at the moment they look set to keep their places, so I'm all for the double up. I mean, it looks too good to be true at that price, particularly.
The competition that you mentioned is reminiscent of, I remember Andy Robertson and Trent having a assist competition, and both of them racking up astronomical numbers. So imagine the equivalent but goals. It would be an absolute points fest for FPL managers, and they do look, both of them, brilliant when they're playing. Like you say, that's not necessarily a guarantee. Their opponents, Burnley, we probably could talk about Burnley because they are actually turning a corner by the looks of things, particularly from an attacking output. But against Chelsea, I can't see many managers investing in their assets on this particular game week. So let's move on to the other 3:00 fixture of the day, which is Crystal Palace versus Wolves. Crystal Palace off the back of that really impressive 2-0 win against Man City. I've actually got total expected goals conceded between game week 1 and 10 on the board right now. Newcastle, the only league that they're topping at the moment is this one with 20.7. And we have to go quite a way down around the kind of echelons of Brighton and Wolves and Chelsea to find Crystal Palace there on 12.7. They are 7th for XGC. And particularly in recent games, they've been very, very good, Bakar.
Yeah, you mentioned that they're ranked 7th for XGC. What's important to note here is that they've had a horrendous fixture run in the first 10 game weeks. So for them to come out 7th best is actually incredible. I would have, if you would ask me at the start of the season where would Palace be after 10 game weeks for XG considered, I would have said bottom 3 for sure. And when you look at their numbers, they're unrecognizable from the team they were last year. They've tightened up massively in terms of defense. They're not conceding as many big chances. They're actually a very likable team to watch as well. I think Vieira has done a fantastic job, and I think Crystal Palace are a team which could give us a lot of options going forward when it comes to their defenders. I mean, Guaita is a decent option. He's racking up a lot of distribution baseline bonus points because Palace like playing out from the back. Then there's Gallagher, who's done really well. The thing with Gallagher is that when Milivojevic isn't playing, he's given a bit more of an advanced role and he's taking set pieces. So his numbers with and without Milivojevic in the side are completely different.
Okay, yeah, I did see it. I can't remember where that particular stat came from, but I remember someone identifying it prior to the Man City game, I think. They are hugely different, aren't they? I mean, it's a dramatic upturn in underlying stats when Milivojevic isn't playing, which, to be honest, does put me off him a little bit as a potential budget midfielder, because you don't want to be dependent on, Crystal Palace's lineup each week. Let's very quickly talk about Wolves, who are on the back of I think it's now a 5-game winning streak. They've been very, very good in recent games. We've seen Jimenez kind of come into a bit of form. Hwang was unlucky not to return against Everton in game week 10 as well. And of course, their defenders, we can see from this XGC table, Wolves are still doing very well from an underlying stats perspective when it comes to the rigidity of their defence. Are they worthy of investment for you, Bakar, or do you feel like we've kind of missed that Wolves purple patch and they're likely to kind of return back to more average results?
This is a very difficult question to answer. Actually, their numbers have dropped big time. Their attacking numbers in particular. When you compare them to they started off very well in terms of their underlying numbers. When you look at their stats from game week 1 to 4. But now they've dropped up big time, and it's not as if they're creating big chances. They've sort of reverted to the Wolves of old under Nuno. So I think Jimenez and Hwang will be consistent with their points, but I don't think they will go big. And I mean, I still think if you have them, you own them, because they will keep delivering for their price, and they will deliver value. But if I was buying a striker this week, it would be Toney and not one of Jimenez or Hwang.
Yeah, fair
enough.
Let
me put it that way.
Fair enough. Yeah, as a Jimenez owner, I'm actually tempted to bench him over Antonio. Looking at that XGC, I actually think away at Crystal Palace is a harder fixture for attackers than playing Liverpool at home for Antonio. But we'll see. I don't know whether I've actually got the guts to follow through with that. Okay, Brighton versus Newcastle. It's the 5:30 kickoff. Not the most thrilling for the football neutral, but there should be, for a lot of managers, some sort of FPL investment. You have chosen to focus on Leandro Trossard, who again had a very good game week 10. Why have you picked him out in particular, Bakar?
He was playing in the false right role against Liverpool. Whether that continues, I don't think so, because I expect Mope to come back in the side. But when I look at Brighton's numbers over the season, Trossard has the best numbers. When it comes to shots inside the box, etc. He's doing really well, and if you're looking for a bit of a differential, I think he could be worth investing in, particularly because Brighton's fixtures from now on get significantly easier. A lot of people are, looking for players in that bracket, and I think if you're looking for a super differential, then Trossard could be your man.
Yeah, Newcastle, Aston Villa and Leeds in the next 3, which is about as good as it gets. You throw Norwich in there and you've pretty much got a perfect fixture on. So yeah, interesting. What do you make of Brighton's clean sheet potential in that game? Let's imagine, Bakar, that you owned Matt Ryan in goal and Ramsdale, who's playing in the 2:00 fixture against Watford. Which one would you be playing?
Sanchez and Ryan,
sorry,
right?
not Matt.
Matt. Yeah.
Matt Ryan.
I was wondering if you're living
in
20. Yeah, I was wondering if you're living in 2019.
I just can't let it go. What a hero. Sorry, Sanchez.
Who would I play? I would probably play Ramsdale, because he's likelier to make more saves, and because of that, he's likely to get a more explosive haul than Sanchez. But I do fancy Brighton for a clean sheet as well.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much. Speaking of Ramsdale, let's move on to Arsenal versus Watford, the first of 3 2:00 fixtures on the Sunday afternoon. I've actually got Ramsdale up here and his defensive stats. He's played in 7 games and is doing pretty well. A 10-point haul in game week 10. and good fixtures on the horizon. Well, actually, mixed fixtures on the horizon, Bakar.
Yeah, mixed for sure. I mean, this one is easier than a home game against Newcastle soon, but other than that, the fixtures are tough. I think he's he's a very explosive keeper to own. I made the mistake of unfortunately benching him this week because I thought Leicester would score, and Leicester actually racked up an XG of around 2. But Ramsdale was in the form of his life. When you look at keepers in terms of minutes per baseline bonus accumulated, Ramsdale is in the top 3, which tells you all that there needs to be. Whenever Arsenal like to keep a clean sheet, Ramsdale is likely to be up there for bonus, and I think he's an excellent option to play this week.
And what about the rest of the Arsenal defence? They still, I mean, with the exception, ironically, of last game week, they've been pretty good for XGC. Have conceded frustratingly, not many goals. We can see here actually at Ramsdale has only actually conceded 4 goals in his 7 appearances. It's 1 a game, which is kind of not what you want when you own him as goalkeeper, but. Do we feel now that we need to start looking at Arsenal's defence in the same way that we look at, for example, Man City or Liverpool in terms of that rigidity?
I don't think they're in the same league when it comes to the rigidity, but I mean they are a decent team to invest in for clean sheets. And Ben White I still think is going to represent excellent value for his price, and I think he's been a bit unlucky in terms of not been able to get those clean sheets as has been the case with Ramsdale prior to this week, because the underlying numbers are very, very good. And even Ben White, he's very good for bonus baseline accumulation.
Okay, brilliant. Right, Everton versus Spurs, and what would usually be a bit of a dead rubber for FPL managers has suddenly burst into life, and that is because, of course, of Antonio Conte's signing. Now, Bakar, lots of literature, including your own on fantasyfootballhub.co.uk, has been published in the wake of this appointment about Conte's likely impact on Spurs. Can you summarise your analysis for us on this video? Where do we think Spurs will improve, if indeed they will improve at all? And does it make their assets viable now?
For sure. I mean, now this has been like the main talking point before the weekend, because before this game week, before this news broke out regarding Conte, Spurs were doing really poor in terms of underlying numbers. When you look at XG or even for XG conceded, defensively and attacking wise both, they were really, really poor. But now that Conte's news has come in, this sort of automatically makes their assets all the more appealing. In his previous stints, Conte is known to be, he's gotten off to very quick starts. And when I look at his first 10 games in charge of either Juve, he won 5 of the first 10 games and he was unbeaten. For Chelsea, he won 7. For Inter, 8 out of 10. So he's known to get off of very, very quick starts. And I think Spurs will be a team to invest in going forward, especially from game week 12. I think Son is the one I would be most interested in owning. Because his numbers, even before the Conte appointment, have been very, very good. Under Nuno, he's averaged at least 1 big chance involvements in the past 5 games. So he's doing well consistently in terms of underlying numbers. And we know that Conte is likely to play a 3-5-2. If he gives Son that role with Kane, where he's playing as a striker out of position, that's a very interesting prospect.
Yes, absolutely. Let's quickly talk about their defence as well. There's been plenty of talk about the impact that Conte's appointment may have on the likes of, for example, Reguilon. Do you think, I mean, they've got a great fixture on, as you've already said, it couldn't be a better time for a new manager to come in, really. Everton, Leeds, Burnley, Brentford and Norwich in their next 5. And Everton, of course, not the team that they were 7 or 8 game weeks ago. Do you think that it's too early to be talking about Spurs' defence, or could they prove to be pretty interesting differentials before this great fixture run?
I think Conte will improve them defensively because when I look at his record historically, it's been very, very good for Chelsea. 16 clean sheets in the league in both of the seasons when he was in charge. Inter 15 clean sheets and 14 clean sheets respectively in the 2 seasons he was in charge. So he is known to be an organizer. And he likes organizing defense very, very well. I think Reguilon in particular could be the one to watch out for, given that he has had success with Hakimi very recently with Inter, and Marcos Alonso we all remember with Chelsea. So I think Reguilon could be a good option in Weston. Personally, if you want to go for a super differential, then he could be the one.
And their opponents, like I've already mentioned, much better than Spurs fans might have imagined when they looked at the fixture roster in Game Week 1. Everton going through a pretty poor phase of form, most recently losing to Wolves. And of course to Watford 5-2. So there is vulnerability there that maybe the likes of Son and Kane can exploit from Game Week 11, Bakar.
For sure, for sure. I mean, Everton have looked all over the place in the past couple of game weeks, and I think this could be, this could be the recipe, the ideal recipe for a new manager bounce that Spurs are looking for.
Yes. Okay. Interesting. That's good to hear. I am definitely eyeing up Son this week, as I'm sure many managers are. Okay. The final 2 o'clock fixture: Leeds versus Leicester. Leicester, another team who are yet to really hit their stride so far this season. Leeds also not doing as well as many FPL managers expected. Raphinha, however, did score 9 points in Game Week 10 against Norwich. How do you rate this fixture in Game Week 11?
I think this is a very good fixture for Raphinha yet again. I've noticed that Leicester have a big problem down their left flank this season. They've conceded the highest number of chances among all teams in the league, and there's no better player than Raphinha to exploit that weakness. When you look at the number of chances Leicester have conceded zonally, James, they've conceded 51% of their chances down that flank as compared to 22% centrally and 27% on their right, which is a big disparity. And that tells me that this is yet another week where Raphinha can do well. I see a lot of managers are considering benching him or selling him because Leeds' fixtures are a bit dodgy on paper. But personally, I'm not a huge advocate of that, and I think there's points to be had from Raphinha.
Yeah, he does. I mean, when he's able to play 90 minutes, which actually hasn't been that frequently in the last 5 or 6 game weeks, he has looked very, very threatening. Was certainly Norwich's biggest menace in Game Week 10, certainly in that second half at least. Tottenham away, Brighton away after this. So you can understand why there might be concern amongst the Raphinha owner ranks. I think this is going to be a big fixture for Raphinha owners. If he does perform well against Leicester, maybe grabs a goal or a couple of assists or something like that, it's going to be very, very difficult to get rid of him. Otherwise, I think he might well find himself on the chopping block. As far as Leicester goes, we should. Oh, hang on, I've gone to the wrong screen. We should mention Jamie Vardy, shouldn't we? I've got his stats from the last 3 games on screen at the moment, rather than the whole season, because he's kind of been a bit Jekyll and Hyde, hasn't he, Bakar?
Exactly. I mean, he's a lot of managers like myself bought him in for Lukaku when Lukaku got injured, and he's been very underwhelming. I think this is an ideal fixture for him to deliver. And back when I was investing in Vardy, I thought the Leeds fixture was the one I really want him for, and this seems like the ideal fixture on paper. Even though Leeds have sort of tightened up defensively in recent times, I still think Vardy should do well over the course of the season. He's still doing very well in terms of XG and shots inside the box, big chances when it comes to forward. So I think if you own him, this is the week you have him for, and he really should do well this week.
Jamie Vardy, one of those players where he either seems to be integral to a game or completely absent from it. It's one or the other with him. I think he's a player of extremes, and that is reflected in the last 3 appearances, just 0.66 XG and an XA of 0.27, only 1 big chance and no big chances created. But we know that with Vardy, he doesn't necessarily need great underlying stats to bring in great FPL returns. So you're calling Bakar lots of goals in that Leeds versus Leicester game. That's what I'm kind of reading between the lines here.
As a Raphinha and Vardy owner, I might be biased, so take that as a bit of a disclaimer.
Okay, no worries. Right, let's talk about this final game of the game week, and it's a huge one for many FPL managers. 4:30 GMT, Sunday afternoon. West Ham versus Liverpool, and it's mostly West Ham players that you'd like to focus on here. Bakar. Let's start with Antonio, and again, I've got this is as far as my statistical analysis goes, but I've got his game week 1 to game week 6 underlying numbers on screen, and also there his game week 7 to game week 10 underlying numbers. And Bakar, there is a huge difference here. In those first 6 game weeks, an XG of 4.75, an XA of 2.72. In the latter 4 appearances, an XG of just 1.2 and an XA of 1.1. Should Antonio owners be worried?
I mean, I've owned him throughout this run, and it's been very frustrating. Given the fact that West Ham racked up 4 goals, Antonio's had like a 67% goal involvement historically, and to see him come out of that game with no return was like there was actually just 1.1 implied probability of that happening, and that actually happens. And it's been very, very frustrating. I still think it's worth giving him a few more fixtures, because when I look at West Ham's fixtures, you think that they're tough: Liverpool, Wolves, Brighton, and City in the next 4. But the fact of the matter is, that they're actually West Ham are ranked 4th for XG, and they're averaging almost 1.9 XG per game. And these teams that they're up against, they scored in each of these 4 reverse fixtures last season. They were averaging almost 2 goals per game in these fixtures. And after these 4 fixtures, their fixtures get considerably easier on paper. And I don't want to sort of, as an Antonio owner, put myself in a position where I sell him this week and I want him back after 4 weeks. So I'm going to give him this run, maybe bench him in a week or for a week or 2. But I think he's worth holding, given the fact that how superior his numbers are to most of the other forwards in the league. In fact, I mean, no one comes close when it comes to XG. Only Salah is better this season, and this is despite Antonio missing a game. So, I think he's worth giving an extended run in the team. And if you want to bench him, then you can bench him for a week or 2. But I think he's a good asset to own for the long run.
Do you think you'll be benching him in that Liverpool game?
Yeah, I don't think I'll be benching him this week, because as I said, West Ham are a team in form, and they strike me as the kind of team who are likely to score against the tougher defenses as well, and they have done so in the past. So I'd expect them to score against Liverpool.
Okay, let's talk about 2 other West Ham attacking assets. Jarrod Bowen against I've got a versus here, but they don't necessarily need to be versus. You can of course own them both, but Benrahma as well. And again, this is the last 4 appearances, and Bakar, there's a huge difference here, not least in the fact that Bowen has 4 attacking returns, Benrahma just the 1 assist in the last 4 games. Are we ignoring Bowen?
I think yes. I did this comparison on my Twitter that from game week 1 to 5, Benrahma had the better of Bowen. He had 4 big chance involvements as compared to just the 2 for Bowen. But over the past 5 game weeks, Benrahma's had just the 1 big chance involvement. Bowen has had 4, and his XG has been very, very superior. I mean, he's almost matching, and he's only next to Salah for XG over the past 4 to 5 game weeks, which tells me that he's doing really, really well. And I think after these 4 tougher fixtures for West Ham, I think that the double up on Antonio and Bowen is likely to attract a lot of FPL managers, and he's one worth keeping an eye on. Benrahma, on the other hand, his numbers have slumped, and then I'm if I own him, I would have sold him, because the fixtures are tougher on paper. His numbers have dropped off, so I think he's worth selling for the likes of Mbeumo or Raphinha if you don't have them.
Yeah, he was Benrahma quite fortunate to get that assist in game week 10. Yeah. Potentially a final reward for any owners that have kept the faith this far. Not a huge amount needs to be said about their opponents, namely because most most managers already own at least 2 Liverpool assets. I do
Yeah.
very quickly want to talk about Sadio Mane though. David Wardale wrote a fantastic review of Game Week 10 for Fantasy
Yeah.
Football Hub,
Read it.
in which he highlighted just how good Mane has been this season. His only crime being
Yeah.
that, of course, he's playing with the best player in FPL at the moment. Do you think that more of us should be taking Mane seriously?
I mean, I would have taken him more seriously had he been priced correctly. I just think that the way FPL have priced him has sort of taken him out of the game. I don't really think Mane is a realistic option, because he's sort of in the upper echelons for a premium player. And if you're owning one at that price, then you'd get Salah for sure. I mean, this is why, I mean, he goes against the concept of value. When you look at value, you'd rather have a player at that price you'd captain. And with Mane, I'd never feel comfortable captaining him when Salah's playing the same team.
Yeah, absolutely fair enough. No, I think you've managed to make what could be quite a complex argument into something incredibly persuasive there. The other thing with Mane, of course, is that he's yet to actually get a bonus point, I read the other day, which is unbelievable. And that's what happens when you play in a team that is populated by the likes of Mohamed Salah and Trent Alexander-Arnold.
And a huge reason for that could be, James, that he misses a lot of big chances. His numbers are actually underlying numbers are actually much better than what his returns have been. He should have had more goals because he gets a lot of chances. He just keeps burning them.
Can I assume, Bakar, that you will be captaining Mo Salah this week?
No prizes for guessing.
Some people are entertaining potentially one of the Chelsea fullbacks, or even I've seen a couple of people talking about Foden again. Toney is
There's no way I'm going to go away from Salah. No,
I've
way,
tried.
not in this form.
I've tried, but no, I didn't think I'd be able to persuade you. No, I think for me, Salah's the only one to go for. All right, Bakar, thank you so much for that. It's a little bit of a longer episode, but I think more than worth it to cover some of these big talking points, particularly Conte's appointment and the like. We will take a break next week, viewers. It is international break, of course, so we'll be back in 2 weeks' time ahead of Game Week 12. Bakar, thank you so much for joining me. Go and follow Bakar on Twitter at BigManBakar and on Instagram at BigManBakar. He's very active on both, giving you lots of statistical-based advice. Thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed it, do give it a like. Bakar, good luck for Game Week 11, mate. I hope you can finish on a green arrow before the international break. Feeling confident?
Good luck to you too. Good luck to you too, James. Yes, I think my team is set up well for the long run, and I'm hoping that the points come in sooner rather than later, so that we can, enjoy the international break.
Yes. Well, on that positive note, we shall leave you there. Cheers, guys. Thanks for watching. Cheers, Bakar.
Good luck. Bye-bye.